Mr. Elliot.
Please, my lord, members of the jury, the first and foremost duty before this court is to seek out the truth. Now, the truth in a case such as this is more elusive than usual. The defendant is an actress. How good, it's difficult to ascertain. But judging from her performance in this court, you may think her convincing. I would suggest a convincing performance. Now, for our fragments of truth, let's go back to the witnesses. Number one, Miss Greenway. Now, she maintained that Norma Matson wanted her to become his future wife and assistant. On the night of the killing, she says she expressed concern to Matson regarding the defendant's threat to kill him. And she had never before witnessed the defendant loading the gun. Number two, Miss Nolan, she maintained there was no real marriage between the deceased and his wife, that just prior to the killing, Mrs. Matson had confessed her concern that her husband would leave her and that she would rather kill him first. Over a period of 8 years, she said that she had never before witnessed the defendant loading the gun. Number three, Frank Tyler, the club manager. Now, he gave us a picture of Matson as a man with no interest in his marriage, a picture of a violent and jealous wife who threatened to kill her husband just prior to his death. Over a period of 5 years, he also had never known the defendant to load the gun. Now, as to the accused herself, now she's endeavoured to present her marriage as normal, with just a little friction, a little pressure. She even goes so far as to tell us that she wasn't concerned about Miss Greenway and her husband. But the part of her performance, too incredible for words, is her insistence that she doesn't know how the shooting illusion was performed. Now, can you believe that in the course of 8 years, sometimes 2 and 3 performances a night, she remained unaware of the props that her husband needed? I mean, how could she possibly assist her husband without a working knowledge of the effects? Now, the gun expert, the brigadier, he said that anyone with intelligence would realize how the illusion was performed, and he further stated that when used with a fine powder, the gun would become lethal. Now, Mrs. Matson, she handled the weapons nightly. At some time or another, she became aware that one of the rifles could fire. And frightened of being discarded by her husband, I put it to you that she deliberately loaded that particular weapon with fine powder and caused her husband's death. So based on the evidence and on the balance of probabilities, I urge you to find Mrs. Matson guilty of murder. Thank you, my lord.
Mr. Pratt.
May it please your lordship, members of the jury, guesswork has no place in a court of law. We are not concerned with the balance of probabilities. It is our duty to examine what evidence we can find and draw our conclusions from the facts alone. My learned friend's speech was, as always, eloquent and impressive. But we must not allow this eloquence to disguise the poverty of his case. His speech was full of conjecture. Proof, however, he totally failed to bring. And yet, the facts are clear. Mrs. Matson did load the gun that killed her husband, but it was by no means the first time that she'd done so. Norman Matson was killed by a bullet from that gun, yet his wife neither aimed it nor pulled the trigger. The gun was defective, but the prosecution have been unable to prove that Mrs. Matson knew of the defect, and this is vitally important, members of the jury, since her husband, who was obsessively careful about his props, was clearly unaware of it. How can Mrs. Matson have known that the gun mechanism was defective? Her only handling of it came during the act on stage, when she passed it to a member of the audience and sometimes helped to load it. She would have been astute indeed if she could have worked out during this that the gun could be made to fire if it was primed with one sort of powder rather than another. Anything else you've heard is, I submit, irrelevant. Mrs. Matson's character, her husband's infidelities, have no bearing on the case. Well, certainly she threatened him, and with cause. His treatment of her was appalling. And yet the marriage had survived for 6 years, during which, from all we've heard, Mr. Matson persistently had affairs with other women. And we only have Miss Greenway's unsupported testimony that he was looking for divorce. But to return to the central fact, that the mechanism of the gun was faulty and therefore capable of firing the bullet. Do you not think that anybody sharp enough to work out how the gun could be made to fire would also be sharp enough to realize that the police would have this gun expertly examined, and that such an examination would be bound to draw attention to the one person besides Norman Matson regularly in a position to handle the gun. Do you not think that anybody that sharp would take care to avoid suspicion, not invite it? In any case, members of the jury, you've seen the defendant, you heard her speak. She is direct, open, quick-tempered, but she's not cunning. You can imagine her rowing with an unfaithful husband. You can believe that she said, I'll kill you if you'll go off with that little girl. I do not think that you can see her working out and executing an ingenious scheme of murder. Does it make sense that she would even contemplate it? Do you think that after 8 years of putting up with her husband's infidelities, 8 years in which she had perfected her function in his stage act, she would choose to destroy her means of livelihood by killing the man who so brilliantly provided it? Members of the jury, there is no proof that my client was, except in the most unfortunate and incidental way, even involved in her husband's death. In the absence of any proof, therefore, I submit there is only one verdict open to you. Not guilty.
Now, members of the jury, you have heard the case for the prosecution and the defence. I do not propose to repeat counsel's arguments, which have been cogently presented. My duty is to instruct you on points of law which may arise. Now, firstly, members of the jury, let me impress upon you that in order to find the defendant guilty, you must be convinced beyond all reasonable doubt that Mrs. Matson intended to kill or cause grievous bodily harm to her husband. Now, you're not required to accept the evidence of the defence. It's enough to doubt the evidence of the prosecution. So the questions really are, did Mrs. Matson know that secret of the trick? Did she further know that the gun could be made to fire? And did she load the gun with fine powder in order to make it fire? Or was his death the result of pure accident for which she was in no way responsible? Only you, members of the jury, can decide. You will now retire and consider your verdict.
All stand. The prisoner will remain standing. Members of the jury, will your foreman please rise? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar, Rita Elaine Matson, guilty or not guilty of murder?
Not guilty.
Very well. Mrs. Rita Matson, you have been found not guilty of the murder of Norman Matson. You are free to go.
The court will rise.
Next week, a chance for you to join another jury in assessing the facts when our cameras return to watch another leading case in the Crown Court.